So these are all the points to be considered in the basic principles of 𝐻𝐿𝐿 declaration. That is the accepted scientific principle. The study should be conformed to an accepted scientific principle. The design formulated in experimental protocol, reviewed by IEC, that is Institutional Ethical Committee. They are conducted by the qualified and trained persons, and it is important in proportion of the inherent risk, and assessment of risk versus benefit is also another point to be considered. Safeguard of the subject's integrity, that is the privacy, is very important. Then abstain unless hazards are predictable. That is very important. When the hazards are there, then one should be withdrawn. Then they preserve the accuracy when it is published. Accuracy is very important when we are publishing the data, when we are publishing the result. Adequately informed or right to withdraw to the patient. If the patient does not interested to take part in the study, he is permitted without any questioning. Then obtain the true informed consent in writing. Then reliance of the legal guardian. It is also another important when what will happen when the legal problems will come, then that also to be considered. Then patient compliance and with declaration is very important. This is also be there. These are the basic principle points that which is important, which is considered in the declaration of 𝐻𝐿𝐿. Then ICH and GCP, what is it? After completion of all the things, it has been once we try to conclude, or once we try to understand the whole story in one nutshell frame. This is the International Conference of Harmonization. Technical requirements for registration of pharmaceuticals for the human use is done in the ICH, and it is the unique bringing together of regulatory authorities and the pharmaceutical industry of Europe, Japan and the United States to discuss scientific and technical aspects of the drug registration. Actually, what happens when the manufacturers are producing the drugs, they want to make market, and they want to put in the market, and they want to make money. But at the same time, money is not the criteria, money is not the important one. It is the importance of the health of the human person is also important. Health of the humans are important. So the untoward side effects should not be there. So who will tell? This the research people will tell these effects of the drug, and the pharmacy people want to make the money. So both the people together come together and follow the regulation rules, regulatory authorities, and then the ICH GCP is created. Since the inception in 1990, it has gradually evolved, and this mission, that ICH mission, is to ensure that safe, effective and high quality medicines are developed and registered in the most resource efficient manner. This is very important, for which the ICH and GCP was created. Why it is required? ICH, GCP, why it is required? The requirement is to harmonize the public disasters, serious frauds and abuse of human rights. What happened in thalidomide? It is a public disaster. Serious frauds, there are different frauds. So for example, that the study of infective hepatitis, study of syphilis, these are all different frauds which are not properly informed, and abuse of human rights, that is in the Nazi's experiments. So all these things to be harmonized, to maintain, to make it to normalcy. The trials of the war criminals, that is in the Nuremberg Code, which was created because of the abuse of human rights, and thalidomide, already I told that the public disaster, and like that blood mount report, that is ethical principles of the syphilis study. All these studies has been made back up and created this ICH GCP. This the journey of the ICH GCP is started in 62 in the United States, FDA IND guidelines, then 1964 declaration of the 𝐻𝐿𝐿, and in 68 it is the Committee of the Safety for Medicines in United Kingdom. Then in 1978 Good Clinical Practices of the United States Food and Drugs Administration Act, then 1961 GCP in Europe, and 1996 ICH GCP, and in 1997 ICH GCP guidelines has been the total journey of the ICH GCP. Then ICH GCP is begun in the 1990 in Brussels. 3 regions participated, representatives from the pharmaceutical industry and academia and the government, that is Ministry of Health. All 3 together come and then discussed, and then they finalized, started the finalizing the document. That is the ICH GCP. ICH GCP, there are 6 parties are involved in this. That is European Union, European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries Associations, then Ministry of Health, Labour, Welfare of Japan, and Japan Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association, United States Food and Drugs Administrative Act, then PhRMA, that is the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, and the observers are World Health Organization, TPP, that is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, Canada, and the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association. These are all parties involved in the creation of this ICH GCP member. These are the members, and the key objective of this ICH is to discuss and define the minimum standards for development and registration of investigational products. So when any new drug is coming, when the new drug is going to be investigated, what are the minimum standards to be there, how to develop these standards, how to define this. This is the key objective of this ICH. Then the result is that many guidelines are made. Most important guideline is ICH GCP guidelines. It is evolved several steps, and it is consolidated guideline is created in September 1997. That is ICH A6. Then the examples are, the examples that is considered in the ICH guidelines is efficacy of the clinical trials, safety of the safety is done by pharmacovigilance and adverse drug reaction reporting, then quality of the raw materials, impurities, residual solvents, etc. Then multidisciplinary, that is the common technical document, electronic submission, and the coding systems. These are the very important guidelines which are considered in the ICH. Then the GCP, that good clinical practices. The good clinical practices is nothing but a standard for the design, conduct, and performance, monitoring, auditing, recording, analysis, and reporting of the clinical trials that provide assurance that the data and the reported results are credible, accurate, and that the rights, integrity, and confidentiality of the trial subjects are protected. Whatever discussed till now, we put it in a one sentence, that is the GCP. But why it is needed? It is needed to ensure the rights, safety, well-being of the trial subjects which are protected, then ensure the credibility of the clinical trial data, what I did, what you did, what he did, what she did, what they did, every data to be matched. If it is not matching, then the data is not good. So means that there is no credibility. So the credibility of the clinical trial data is important. The ICH guidelines talks, once you talk it provide it provide a unified standard for the all different regions. For example, European Union, Japan, and United States regions to facilitate mutual acceptance of the clinical trial data by regulatory authorities in these regions. It consists of 8 sections. The section 1 is glossary, where common language to be explained, and for the investigators, sponsors, and ethical committees, like that the principles of good clinical practices. There are 13 tenets in the ICH and GCP is there. There are requirements of IRB, IEC, that is the roles and responsibilities of the composition and responsibilities of the investigator is declared. Then responsibilities of the sponsor, requirements for the clinical trial protocol and protocol amendments, and then responsibility of the sponsor in the development of the investigation brochure, investigator's brochure, then essential documents. These are different 8 sections that are there involved in the ICH GCP. The ICH GCP should follow the ethical conduct as per the Declaration of Helsinki and GCP, regulatory requirements, risk and benefit assessment, primary concern of the subject, supportive data with the animal experimentation and other pharmacological studies, then protocol, that is scientifically sound, clear, and detailed protocol also to be produced in the GCP. Then there must be an ethical clearance to conduct the study. The study should be conducted in a compliance with the protocol which has been received by the ethical committee approval. And ethical committees are not related to anybody. They are all autonomy institutions, autonomy committees. The subject care. In that ethical committee, the subject care is considered. The medical decisions, responsibility, qualified physicians who will be take care, then qualified staff, and to appoint the investigation to do the investigations, to study the total study of the clinical study. The qualified staff should be appointed by education, by training, by experience in their responsibility area, and an informed consent. Consent is also to be taken, very important one. Then the clinical trial data should be recorded and handled, stored, enable accurate reporting and interpretation and verification. Wherever you want, whenever you want, you have to produce the data and it should be interpreted accordingly in a manner that it should be interpreted. Then the confidentiality of the data and confidentiality of the study. The investigational protocol is to be manufactured, handled and stored as per the good manufacturing procedures, practices, good manufacturing practices, like that all the investigative data, investigative material to be considered. Then quality assurance to be also be there, the systems and the procedures to ensure the quality of the every aspect of the trial. For example, we want to do the blood test, and the blood test to be done as per the based on the qualified assurance test protocol. So in India also the GCP guidelines has been considered. It is released in the first time, it is released in the 2001, and it is developed by the CDCSO, that is the Central Drug Standard Control Organization, Directorate General of Health Services, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, and endorsed by the DCGI, that is the Drug Controller General of India. These two people are responsible to produce, and these two groups are important. They made the Indian GCP guidelines in general in line with the ICH and GCP guidelines of the foreign countries. It has received Scheduled Y in 2005 January and addressed the discrepancies. Whatever the discrepancies are found in the 5 years study, after that, after 4 years, 3 to 4 years, then they developed these discrepancies, and those discrepancies has been addressed in the and they revised in the Scheduled Y. The objectives of this international harmonization of regulatory requirements is considered here, and they are safeguard the public health, assure the consumer protection standards, facilitate availability of the safe and effective products, and eliminate the inconsistent standards of internationally, facilitate mutual acceptance of the data from clinical trials. These are all the objectives of this international harmonization regulatory requirement. Then the important points is study document during the study to be, the investigators must keep the source documents, that is the medical records, including access to the computer records. Then laboratory reports, we have to keep ECGs, X-rays, and any other medical record, reports, notes, hospital administration and discharges, whatever it is, these are all things to be properly maintained. Then subject identification list and copies of all study related documents to be properly maintained. Then in particular, the records in particular should contain the notes of sufficient information to support the subjective eligibility of the consent, and then they should be well documented, signed and dated, subjects' participation in the study and dates of visits, when the follow-ups were taken, what is the date of the follow-up, then what are the procedures done, what are the investigations done during the every follow-up, during the beginning, during the end, and what are the observations and what is the diagnosis, what are the medications taken, how it was done, the total protocol to be very important thing, that is the medical record, including study of medication, what if any adverse or serious adverse events are taken place, if those are also to be noted, and on the completion or withdrawal from the study, whether the subject is completed the study or he himself withdrawn from the study, or you yourself has been withdrawn the patient from the study. So these are to also be noted. Then after completion of the study documentation will be given to the total data to be submitted to the sponsor, and sponsors needs from the investigator, because he has sponsored the study, so we have to give the total documents and final drug accountability of the records, all used and unused supplies of the medication to be returned to the sponsorer, and all required documents to be completed accordingly. And these are all the references for the good clinical practices, you can see. And natvaham kamaye rajyam na swargam na punarbhavam kamaye dukta tattanam praninam atanasinam. This is 𝐴𝐴𝑟𝑦𝑎. So here we don't want any control like a kingdom, we don't want any moksha, we don't want anything except we are interested to relieve the pain and agony of the patients. So for that we need to act. So with this I conclude. Thank you.